Sample batting averages for baseball players from two opposing teams are listed. Find the coefficient of variation for each of the two data sets. Then compare the results. Team A is listed here, and there are a total of 10 data values, and Team B is listed here, and there are also a total of 10 data values. You'll notice that the question says the coefficient of variation for Team A is blank percent, and then we're going to type an integer or a decimal rounded to the nearest tenth as needed. Now for this problem, what we're going to do is to find the coefficient of variation, we're just going to call it capital C, capital V, and that's going to be equal to little s over x bar, and we're going to multiply that by 100%. Now obviously we need to know what little s is, and that's going to be our sample standard deviation. And we also need to know what x bar is, which in this case is going to be our sample mean. The easiest way to do this is with technology. You'll notice these two icons here after the group of data in both Team A and Team B. Those we're going to use to copy the data into a program called Statcrunch. Statcrunch is integrated into my StatLab, and it works somewhat like Excel and somewhat like SPSS and SAS, but it is a proprietary program. So we're going to go ahead and go back into my StatLab, and we're going to go to Team A, and I'm going to left click this icon, and I'm going to have a number of options, and I'm going to left click open in Statcrunch, and then it will bring up a pop-up window which is Statcrunch, and you'll see that it's got the data in column 1 here that associates with the data in Team A right over here. So now what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and left click where it says stat right here, and we're going to scroll down to summary stats, and then we're going to left click columns. We're going to left click var1 here so that it shows up over here. And then what I want to do is I want to make sure that I have the correct values that I'm looking for. Remember that I need the sample mean and the sample standard deviation. I'm going to go ahead and remove a few of these right here. And we actually want the mean, and we want the standard deviation. Now these are the sample mean and the sample standard deviation. If you are looking at simply using a population, if you want the variance and the standard deviation, you would use unadjusted. Now obviously the mean's not going to change no matter what, because it's going to be the total number of data values. So I just want the mean and the standard deviation, so I left click compute, and it's going to give this little pop-up window here. Now I'm going to go ahead and copy this pop-up window so that we can bring it into the other program, and I can go ahead and do some calculations with it. Alright, so this right here is going to represent Team A. So we'll go ahead and find the coefficient of variation for Team A. So the CV for this one is going to be equal to the sample standard deviation, which in this case is going to be 0.040920519, and I do suggest that you use as many values as you possibly can, since this will tend to minimize round off error. And we're going to go ahead and put the mean down here, which is 0.2996. And don't forget that we are going to multiply this whole fraction by 100%. Now you just need to go ahead and put this into your calculator and calculate this out. Now in order to do this, I'm going to use an online calculator entitled web2.0calc.com, and that's just simply an online calculator that is a very solid scientific calculator. So I'm going to start by putting in 0.040920519. And then I'm going to divide by 0.2996, and then I am going to multiply by 100. And you'll see what I have right up here is exactly what I have written down. And we'll hit equals, and we'll get 13.658 something or other. So we will go ahead and write that down. So 13.658384178. We're going to need to round that off, and notice that it says right here, type an integer or a decimal rounded to the nearest tenth as needed. So that means I'm simply going to say that the CV for team A, and I can go ahead and write down team A as a subscript, will be equal to 13.7%. And that's what I'm going to enter into my stat lab. So we'll type in right here, type in 13.7, and we get the warm fuzzy nice work. We're going to need to do this again for team B, so we'll go ahead and click OK. Come up here, we'll left click this, open in Statcrunch. This is team B now. I want to find the same exact values for, or the same type of values for team B that I did for team A. So we'll go to stat, we'll go to summary stats, once again to columns. Since I only have one column, which is labeled var1, I will left click that. I'm going to left click mean. I'm going to hold down my control key, left click standard deviation, left click compute, and I now have my mean and sample standard deviation for team B. And now that I have that, let's go back over here and let's go ahead and make some calculations. So here's my summary stats that I need for this particular problem for team B. I need the mean and the standard deviation. I'm going to do the exact same thing in this particular part of the problem that I did in the first part for team A. For team B, it's going to be the fact that the coefficient of variation is going to be equal to the sample standard deviation over the mean of the sample times 100%. So then we'll just simply say that this is equal to 0.040912508 all divided by 0.2595, and then we're going to multiply that by 100%, and that will be the CV for team B. And I've gone ahead and entered the decimal, the division, and the multiplication, and you'll see exactly what it looks like, which is going to be exactly the same thing as how I've written it in the problem. I will left click equals, and that's going to give me an awfully long number, but I am going to round this to one decimal place as indicated in the directions. So this will be equal to 15.8. And once we plug this into the calculator and go ahead and divide and multiply, we get 15.765899, and it goes on. But we are just going to round this to the nearest tenth, since that's what the directions call for. So 15.76 is going to round to 15.8%. And now we can compare the two coefficients of variation. So let's go ahead and type in this coefficient of variation into my stat lab, 15.8%. We'll check the answer. And then the next part of the question is compare the variability of team A and team B. And it's multiple choice. A, the batting averages of team B are more variable than team A. B, the batting averages of team B and team A do not vary. C, the batting averages of team A are more variable than team B. And D, the batting averages of team B and team A have the same variation. Now, as we look at this, we're going to decide, since the coefficient of variation for team B is 15.8% and the coefficient of variation for team A is 13.7%, since team B's coefficient of variation is higher than team A's, we can conclude that the batting averages of team B are more variable than team A. We'll check our answer, and we're done with the problem.